looks like.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order then. First thing to do is act on the agenda.
I make a motion to accept the agenda as written.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Act on the minutes, the June 24 meeting.
I move that we accept them as offered.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public comment? Do you have any public comment that's not on the agenda?
No.
No, we'll move to old business. 977 Simonville Road buyout discussion.
And your name is?
My name is Steve Libby, L-I-B-B-Y. I'm with the State Vermont Emergency Management Office. And our office administers the Flood Resilient Community Fund. And the Flood Resilient Community Fund was a fund that is available for buyouts of properties that are threatened by flooding. And so we've been working with the town regarding the 977 Simonsville Road. So that's the Houghton's property. And my understanding was that there was concern by the board on one of the forms that were part of the package of forms that the town was going to sign. And I got that from Jeanette with the highlighted paragraphs. And basically understand what the concern is, that those two paragraphs really are related to the portion of the ARPA money that was for economically distressed communities. So there is a possibility that this financial office of our agency would consider removing those two paragraphs from the form. And I have formally requested that of the financial office. I did that on Friday, and the person that was kind of in charge of that was on vacation and didn't see the email until this morning. But she said she would kind of run it up through their higher levels of administration that need to approve that. And I have not heard one way or the other. As of last I checked, it was about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So at this point, I don't know what their decision will be on whether to eliminate those two paragraphs.
And
So,
I have a question. Was the flood, was this funding established during COVID, or was it established long before that?
it was established during COVID.
So it's COVID funding.
This is important to understand. So the first round of funding under the Flood Resilient Community Fund was capitalized with COVID-19, with ARPA money. And there was very clear allowances for that ARPA money to be used for flood-prone property buyouts. And we did, I don't know how many of other buyouts across the state using that same fund. That fund has been now reauthorized by the legislature for fiscal year 25. So fiscal year that started on July 1st. But it's going to be completely funded by state money. There's no federal ARPA money involved in this next iteration of the Flood Resilient Community Fund. So that the set of documents that were related to that previous round were there because of the federal requirements. So I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that, you asked me if that was ARPA money. It was for the Flood Resilient Community Fund for fiscal year 23 and 24. It will not be ARPA funded for fiscal year 25. It's all state money, state appropriations.
So even the documents that you're bringing to us would be invalid if we were to go with the new guidelines. Am I correct? The reason I asked, I'll get to the point here.
Yeah.
The reason I asked is that when we were all discussing, and you said it yourself, that this damage took place in 2011, 2015, and 2017, far before COVID, or COVID funding was even available. So I am a little concerned with that and where that money goes. I am a little bit also concerned, and I understand your plight, that you haven't reached out to any other entity to try and sell the place or do anything different. And you stated that this was the best way to get the most money.
Well,
And
let me
it
ask you
would be
this.
the money that you would get prior to the building, prior to any of this damage even taking place. Yeah, that was in 2011, 2015, 2017. So it would be prior to 2011. Yet the funding is available for COVID. So that kind of, as a select board member, you're asking me to sign something that I don't feel is legitimate to sign. I don't feel like, and I do worry about what is our responsibility then with that piece of property, if indeed it does need to be upgraded so that the bridge doesn't go out, or how much will the state do versus how, I mean, these are all the things I would want to know. It's not just a piece of property that is upstream that's not going to impact anything else. So I am concerned about all that, because as a town, it's the taxpayers of this town that would have to then fork out tax dollars to do what they need to do to make that happen, along with paying Jeanette to do all the bookkeeping for it.
So,
And I do understand that there is,
Yeah, I know.
right, but those are the
Yeah,
questions
yeah,
that need to be answered. As a select board person, I think it's very important that we are representing the town and the taxpayers of the town. And I have reached out and talked to other people that don't particularly think this is a good idea with their tax money. And I know there are people showing up here that probably think it is. And I support, I understand where you're coming from, but I am a little concerned about the funding, where it's coming from, how we're signing off on it. It doesn't seem really legit to me.
So let me see if I can respond to that legitimacy question. So my understanding, and I've only worked here for a year, I was not involved with this fund in previous years, but what I know has been the way the fund has worked over the past year or 18 months is that projects that are identified as being good flood resilience projects that do not qualify for FEMA funding are eligible for this flood resilient community fund. So that's sort of like the entry criteria. What is the project? Is it a project that will make individuals, the community, the state better prepared for future flooding events? And one major part of that being prepared is taking buildings out of harm's way. And how that gets sort of determined is through a proposal is made to the fund. We as the staff look at it and make sort of an initial determination of whether we feel that it's appropriate for the fund. And then it's reviewed by a project review committee, which is made up of several different state agencies, Agency of Natural Resources, Department of Agency of Transportation has a member there. There's several other regional planning commissions, and they independently consider whether each project is appropriate for the fund. And they considered this project last fall and checked it off and said, yes, this is a situation where the Williams River is very volatile in this area. We don't know. Nobody knows where it's going to go over the next 20 years. And the immediate thing, of course, is the garage, which is in imminent danger of collapsing. The bridge as well is, I don't think anybody really knows long-term whether that bridge is going to be sustainable in that location or maybe upgrade. So that was part of the consideration, was the property could be beneficial to VTrans as they consider how, VTrans owns the bridge. It's a state-owned bridge. It's not a town-owned bridge. So VTrans is responsible for doing whatever they need to maintain that. So the thought was, if this property at some point in the future could benefit reworking the bridge, then that was a good thing. So it's taking a structure potentially out of harm's way. And that's a big part of what the Flood Resilient Community Fund has been used for, is doing numerous buyouts. And I guess that's partly the response to is this an okay use of COVID money? Well, buyouts have been part of the program from day one, as far as I know. So whoever was kind of figuring out what's appropriate at the state level for COVID money clearly identified property buyouts as being appropriate. So that's at that, kind of the state funding level, this has been reviewed, vetted, and determined to be an appropriate project for the fund. Now, that specific form, I think, somebody really did their due diligence here, like really read the fine print.
Well, that's what we're supposed to do.
You're supposed to, yeah.
That's
Right.
what the
We were like,
issue is that, when we read it, I ask questions as to what does this look like for the town when we have a piece of property that is there's nothing we can do with this property. The town, it is of no value to the town. Will it then become a burden to the town and to the taxpayers to own a piece of property that we have to upgrade so that the bridge doesn't get washed out?
See,
And I need that question I personally need that question answered.
there could be a scenario where the town would be responsible for protecting the
Right,
state bridge.
right. And that that would be an astronomical amount of money for the town to have to come up with. And if that's the case, then
Is that,
I would clearly need to have that defined.
Yeah.
Clearly defined, because that's not
I've
a
never
good use
heard
of
of that.
taxpayers' money.
I've never heard of a town being responsible for a state-owned highway bridge.
Would the town be responsible for upgrading the property so that it doesn't?
So that
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
hands up.
correct?
Yeah, that was my question. So as it is right now, the property owner, if he wanted to shore that bank up, that river bank up, it's on him to take care of that.
Right.
If we then take over ownership of that property, we would be liable. I'm 100% sure.
Charlie is our,
And so I'm very
Road
concerned
plan.
about that, because I don't think our taxpayers are going to be very happy with us if we take over a piece of property that is of no value to us, none whatsoever, and then have to put more money into it to preserve a bridge that isn't our responsibility to preserve at this point until we own the property. So that I would clearly need to know that there is no way, shape, or form 20 years from now that would happen, 30 years from now.
that the town would somehow be responsible for
For any
stabilizing.
type of
for
stabilization of that ground whatsoever, because it's of no value to us. It's not
So-
like there's,
Yeah,
a ton of property along with it. And I
Yeah.
also question, and this is just a personal question. I understand, I didn't know that you have a property down the road from there. Why wouldn't you just pick up the houses and put them down there? Sell that?
Do you know how much it costs to move?
Well, I don't know. I don't
it costs a
know.
lot of money.
But it's not our responsibility to figure that out. It was
Right.
just a,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is our responsibility to be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers' dollars. And I'm very concerned about what that means and what that piece of property, it's of no value to the town.
So let me throw out a hypothetical situation. The Houghtons retain ownership of the property. It continues to erode. They do not have to stabilize that bank to protect the state highway. They don't have to shell out money themselves to do that. It's up to the state to stabilize, and they can work within their right of way, the state right of way, to do whatever they need to do. But I would be absolutely floored if a private landowner were required to stabilize a riverbank in order to protect a state-owned property.
And I think what we're saying is they wouldn't be, but a town, municipality, very well may be.
Okay,
but I mean, I sympathize a
Oh,
lot
I
with
do
you,
too.
but so just realize, but I'm just trying to put myself in that situation. I think I would feel like I needed to just take that garage down ASAP, because I would feel responsible
Or put it on
if
the
the
market.
garage,
But
well, I mean, that garage is dangerous. I mean, don't we have like codes that say you can't have dangerous buildings about to fall in? I mean, it's scary driving by that. I would think that you wouldn't want the liability of having that garage hanging there. I mean, it would keep me up at night.
well, that's the whole point of the buyout.
But
is to-
I
is to
mean,
remove those.
in the meantime, I mean, it's been going for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it would cost to just have a private person just
Wouldn't
take it
you
away.
think that, my name's Lee Whiting, wouldn't you think that when the buyout happened, that the state or whoever the state is gonna hire to come in and take that thing down, don't you think that they would at that point do some type of a stabilization thing to that bank?
Well, I would want to know that for sure.
To the detail.
I would want to know that for sure.
Wouldn't that be what reasonable people would do?
Well, I would want to know that for sure because they haven't done it thus far. So what would make you think that they would do it now?
Well, they don't have.
That's my
access
issue.
really to get in.
And really, truly, and we can go back and forth of what we should or what we think or what, but truly, the select boards, what we are to do here is to figure out what is fiscally responsible for our taxpayers. What are we using our taxpayers' dollars for? And is this going to cause our taxpayers more money?
Yeah, I think that's a very straightforward
And I am
question.
very concerned that it
So,
is. I'm very concerned, and until I saw paperwork that says that it absolutely will not, I would be very concerned about putting anything into this, because I am concerned. I'm concerned there's a bridge right there, I'm concerned the road is right there, across the board. And I do hear you that, yes, you would think that, but you would think that the state would come in and fix this river so that your garage wouldn't fall in, but they're not, are they? So why would they do it later on?
Well, we all have a common goal here, and, the thing is that, as we talked about before, my problem is everybody's problem, and we're trying to deal with it a different way. But when that garage is compromised, okay, there's gonna be a big hole, and it's gonna be a big problem with Route 11, it's gonna be a big problem with the bridge. And then probably at that point, then the state is gonna have to do something major to armor up the whole approachway, because you can't just protect 12 feet from the bridge at that point, because there's gonna be a hole there.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but, and I do hear what you're saying, your problem is everyone's problem. It's everyone's problem, but the town's problem right now. But it very well could become the town's problem, and that's where my issue lies. And I want to know for sure that it wouldn't before I sign anything. That's my take on it.
Chris, what do you think?
That's how I feel.
I know from talking to the state, the water people and the road people, they aren't planning on doing anything as far as armoring up anything. We're just gonna let the river take its course. I really doubt that.
So Melissa, your question is, and I think,
Robin,
Robin, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
Robin, your question is pretty simple. If the town owns the property, will the town ever be responsible for stabilizing the bank in order to protect the highways? That's, yeah.
In order to protect anything.
Yeah.
In order to protect anything in that area, because right now it is not the town's responsibility.
Here, I'll find out as best I can. It's probably some, I don't know who issues the opinion on that, whether it's V-Trans or whatever, but hearing that is a legitimate question from the town's point of view.
I think it is. I mean, I feel it is. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but I'm trying to look forward. I'm looking 10 steps forward, and I know how much these floods are costing us, and I'm concerned with, where will we ever come up with the funding?
So I think it's a pretty straightforward question for V-Trans about, it's your road, you own it, you're responsible for maintaining it. If this particular spot started to erode, so that who's responsible for maintaining that structure there?
Yeah.
Would be,
Not structure.
No, I mean the structure of the bank.
Yeah.
is there any universe under which V-Trans would be willing to take the garage down just because
Chris,
it's
you said
such a,
no.
no. Okay.
V-Trans only deals with 12.5 feet from the side of the road.
So anything beyond that would be our responsibility if indeed someone said, hey, you need to stabilize this bank so it doesn't take out the bridge. I don't know, Charlie, what do you think?
That's my feeling on it. I mean, can't say for sure. I mean, maybe we could invite Mark Pickering or somebody like that that has, more accurate input as far as the state's responsibility. I used to work for the state, and he's saying basically the end of the wing wall is probably about as far as what they have to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not enough, in my opinion.
Can you use that buyout money to repair that slope?
Well, the buyout money only goes to them.
Well,
It doesn't go to us.
What could they allot it for repairing that slope? And then the town would generate the tax money for years to come.
Well,
No,
I think
No,
the purpose is that they want as much money as they can get.
they're trying to get out.
The
of that
way they
property.
can
Well, I
get,
don't
this
blame
is the way they get the most, and I don't blame them either, but
Right.
this is the way, as opposed to putting it on the market or reaching out to people that might want to buy it. This is the best way for them to get the most amount of money. And you stated that. I'm just
Right.
saying what you stated.
Right.
Have you reached out to anybody about?
Like I said,
purchasing
other
or-
than the discussion we had with Jeff Gordon, whose price he was saying, well, I buy this house is worth this. And then I have to take down the garage and I have to grade this and I have to move the driveway and I have to do this and
Have you
that.
talked to any real estate? And not that it matters, because we don't even need to
No.
go there.
No, we
It's
haven't.
not our, it's
You
not our.
you wanna buy it?
It's not our,
I mean, what's somebody gonna do with that property when they buy it?
I don't know, you know what, that is not a decision for us to make.
Right.
The decision, and we're getting in the mires here right now, because the decision for us as select board members to make is whether or not this is a responsible decision for our taxpayers. And at this point, when there's so many questions, I don't feel that it is.
So I will address that question about, if the town owned the property, would there be any fiscal financial liability on the town to protect
Responsibility.
responsibility?
Yeah.
Yeah. All I can say is we've done hundreds of these buyouts around the state, and I'm sure some of them also were involved with state. And we've never had a situation where a town that I know of was turned around to be, later responsible for
Yeah.
protecting the state.
But how many of them are right next to a bridge?
I was just
And
gonna say
as you
that.
said, this is everyone's
Yeah.
problem, and I have stated
Yeah.
clearly that it's not Andover's problem right now. And I don't mean to be rude, but it really is not Andover's problem right now. What?
Don't we already own the other side of that river?
Pardon
Yeah, that was another thing. Not very-
I'm just looking at the map, so I don't know where that name is.
So, I don't know. I mean, those are the questions that I have. There's a bridge right there. So, and as you stated, the bridge could go out. So what do we have to do as a town if we own that property?
Have you, I think I already asked, and it's probably kind of obvious, but have you considered taking the garage down yourself because it's so dangerous?
But that's an additional cost to us on top of the fact that value of the property is dropping as the property gets taken into the river. There's less acreage, there's less property, and now you're selling a property with no place to possibly put a garage because of the septic system that is up on the hill is now becoming closer and closer to the river.
I'm just thinking as a
We're not
safety
in a
concern, it
position
must
to-
be horrifying to own that garage that's in that condition.
Yeah, I mean, we just basically take everything out of there and,
We've been asking for help for 10 years, and, where does our property line end as the river keeps coming in? Who owns the river? But, I hear a lot of good points here and, more questions are getting raised as we're moving forward. I just want to be straight of where we are. I know we have a problem with the language. But now we do have a problem with, making sure the comfort level is right, that if we move forward, that the town's not going to be responsible in any way to improve that property to protect the bridge or Route 11. That's
Right, and I believe that that's a very legitimate,
Yeah.
not only the fact that we are also asking the taxpayers to pay to put this all together and the management of it, because it will be taxpayers'
Well, you're going
dollars.
to be getting paid, Steve. You can.
There's funding, but is it,
5% of the total project value? And at this point, I think that it's, $250,000 or something like that. So 5% of that, it may be north of that if the actual appraisal comes in higher, is for the town to use for administering the grants. So that's, 10 grand or more.
which depending on how long this,
Yeah.
I mean, 10 grand isn't,
Yeah,
it's not a lot of money.
no,
It's not a lot of money in the
And-
big picture, in the big scheme of
and
things.
that's just for town management costs. It has all the other costs of the transaction, legal costs, appraisals, demolition, removal, all that stuff is paid for by the.
Do you know if they say that we said, great, we signed the papers tonight and they're gonna go and demolish those buildings, and now suddenly the town of Andover, do they remove the septic system that's been
Yes.
there? So everything's out of there.
Jeanette has to
The
make
reason
sure
I
all
say
is
that-
done. She's the one that has to.
You're the
file
one who
it.
has
She's
to
the one that
oversee
has
all
to
that.
I don't know,
oversee.
I guess Steve should answer. I know in a FEMA buyout that I would, but I don't know in this case.
It's, the idea is at the end of this buyout process, there would be no structures left on the property. There have been occasions where we haven't taken the septic tank out, we just fill it up with sand because it was, didn't
Right.
really need to.
The only reason I bring it up is because the river's right there.
Yeah, no,
And again, if it's cheaper and easier to just leave it there and then another big storm comes through and all of a sudden there's a septic system laying out there in the water, what, is Andover become somehow, we're just trying to not be, we don't want to be
We don't want
on the hook
Yeah.
for the liability of that bridge.
we
for it.
just did a buyout up in Washington of a property right next to the river. And the building was taken and the septic system was completely removed as part of the demolition. So I have no reason to believe we would do it any other than that.
And so if it were moving forward and Jeanette's here and the thing's moving forward and Jeanette's doing the work, the bottom line is that Jeanette would have to be sort of crossing the Ts and dotting the Is as to like the state regulations and that this was done correctly and that was done correctly. And then our road crew in some way or another would have to be out there, I'm sure, for the side of the road and the way the thing comes up to where the water was and where the garage was, because now we've got the bank that's just fallen in. And I guess it would continue to fall in and maybe, that's like a lot of people doing a lot of things around
For a
keeping.
piece of property that is of no value to Andover. That's my issue. If it were your other piece of property and it was of value to Andover, then that would be different, but it's not. It's a piece of property that is of no value to Andover. And once you pull the house off, you can never put another home there. You can never put another structure there. So those are all my concerns.
Yeah.
And I hate to be the sticky wicket here, but for the taxpayers, I have to think about those things. What is the peanut gallery out there mean? Because we've asked everyone their opinions, but
Well, you know.
I know-
Well, no,
well, we know that, but it's not,
it's not, I don't see how the state can hold town liable. for it.
right, but unless we know that for sure,
Yeah.
I won't
You'd be
guess on
surprised
that.
what the state holds a town liable for.
Well, you don't have to tell me.
I never knew half the things that a state will hold the town liable for.
I work.
Yeah.
Yes,
So now, are you all people that own property along that river?
I
So are you,
lost property myself.
not you, I know you, but I'm talking about the three gentlemen on the back row here.
I work for Mr. Holt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a,
Okay.
You don't know.
no.
Right, I'm just trying to get the connection.
Right, just trying to figure out what's
connection is.
because some people were talking, some people weren't, and I didn't know what the connection was either. So Chris, what are you thinking?
I'd like to see
Generally.
that question answered
Yeah,
before I sign anything.
about the liability.
I'd like to see
What's our
everything.
responsibility to the state after this happens? Two things, I think. I'm gonna say this, two things. That
I think
the
there's more than
wording,
two.
well, there's more, but the two big things for us is the wording in the contract. Because like you said, somebody looked through this with fine tooth comb. Will we do that? Because we're all really paranoid about what can
Well,
happen.
and I'm not paranoid. I'm looking out for the taxpayers.
I'm
Because it's
paranoid.
my responsibility. If I sign my
Yeah.
name to this, and 10 years down the road, it's cost the town a bunch of money, that's on me for not reading the contract. And I understand where you're coming from. I would like to see the place, honestly, I'd like to see the place go on the market and see if it sells.
Well,
But
we asked, part of
I
the
know.
reason is our neighbors directly next door. How long has your house been for sale?
Long time.
Yep.
And it's like if you try to sell it, you're only giving the next person the same problem. It's like,
yeah,
Well, and then there's the COVID language that we're
and
all
the COVID
concerned
language
about.
is big, right?
So what, I guess, so yeah, we have that issue about the liability of the town. After the town owns it, what does V-Trans say? Do they say to the town, hey, you guys gotta you need to get this thing up to snuff in order to save our bridge, because we know that they say that stuff. They say those kind of things, right? You've got to bring this road up to code. You've got to bring this up to whatever it's supposed to be so that it protects our road, or it protects our bridge, or it protects that culvert, or whatever that is. And that stuff is so incredibly expensive. And when Robin says that, it wouldn't be unlikely that if another flood came through and that bridge was looking worse, and now we own the property, but we've lost another 15 feet of that yard where the thing was, for the state to come in and say, you people have to spend the money to get some retaining walls in there to protect our bridge.
So that's the fundamental question. Is that actually true?
That's a big question, because that's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And I will find out what I can't say, just in my experience when we've gone through this many times, it's never.
How many houses have been right up? I mean, I don't even, I actually need the question answered as to whether or not that would be, but I do in the back of my mind think, well, how many houses have been that close to a bridge?
Yeah.
Just one.
I don't know that, but I will find out.
Yeah.
So I'll find out about that. And then there's the language question, which depending upon how my request is treated by the business office, they'll either say yes or no.
Yeah.
If they say yes, they'll remove those paragraphs. Then that, from what I understand, were the problematic paragraphs, numbers 2 and number 17.
Mhm.
If they say no, we can't change that, then the option would be to basically just use the next phase of the Flood Zone Community Fund program, which does not have those ARPA-related conditions.
And I'd like to see a total on this, because we've seen no money. We've seen nothing. We've seen no totals. We've been asked to sign something that doesn't have how much is this? How much is the buyout? How much is which you're asking the town to kind of sign almost a blank, but you just said that you don't even know what the actual buyout's going to be.
So when the application was put together, there was a budget put together. This is the budget sheet that breaks down the various components. When that application was made, the best way that we could determine what the actual fair market value of the property was is to take the town's assessment, what the town says. And we generally added 30% to that, knowing that most towns in the state are below the actual market value with their town assessments. So we don't know exactly what that number is, but whatever it is, from the actual appraisal run on the day before the event, that's what would be funded. So that would be the payment to the landowners. The other costs involved, the legal costs, the survey costs, if there need to be survey costs, any of the other transaction fees, whatever those were, would be paid for by this program. And there's estimates of those on the budget sheet that was part of the application the town submitted. So at this point, from what we looked at, the total cost estimate was $218,000 for the property compensation to the landowners and all the other costs. What we don't know, because we just don't know, is what the demolition costs will be. So what we've done in the past is, whatever those costs are, the program pays for them. So, there's some squishiness in the numbers, but it will not fall back on the town to make up any differences. It's all coming out of this particular program.
The new round of program, the 25, is that Jeanette would still have to do administration on that? Or?
We don't know exactly what the rules for the fiscal year 25 program will be. Our assumption is that they'll be pretty similar, except for those ARPA requirements. Pretty similar as far as what type of projects qualify, what process will be used to work the funding program through. I think what I can tell you is it would be less onerous than a FEMA buyout would be, because with the FEMA buyouts, there's a lot more hoops you have to jump through. And so I can't tell you exactly what the rules for the FY25 program will be, but we understood from the legislature that it was to continue the high level of success that the program has had in the past. It's really so.
And then just out of curiosity, all this funding is coming from
Our legislature
our
voted
taxpayers,
back. Yeah,
right?
well, it's people in Barry who are.
But it's
who are
coming from our
desperate.
taxpayers,
It's coming from the general fund,
which is from our taxpayers.
yes.
It would be nice to see that go into things that were, I don't know how much push you have, but things more along the lines of town garages and things that would help out the entire community as opposed to.
Yeah, well, it's a huge challenge, to figure out how to allocate these funds. And I'm not a politician, so I'm not involved with how the legislature sorts out what they will fund, but apparently
Or just not take it all.
they
The
felt,
taxpayers are.
well, it's, I can't.
Right, that's the
Right.
reality.
This is just me talking,
Yeah.
not as a select board member, but as a
Also,
taxpayer.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
going,
yeah,
wow,
I'm a taxpayer
come
too.
on.
Yeah.
right, I know, yeah. So, I think that, and I'm just gonna bring this up, and then we don't have to, because obviously we've got some questions, but I wonder about how, and maybe Jeanette, you can answer this for me, this question, because this is more of a question than a statement. So say that the best thing happens for them, they get the money, this flood relief, and they buy their thing out. So we then immediately, we own that land, but we no longer get any taxes for that land, right?
Right.
Obviously, it's not privately owned. So if people all along that area just start going to this program and we lose multiple properties off that whole Route 11, for whatever reason, I guess if they fit in the flood, whatever it is, Andover could end up owning a whole bunch of river bottom or river land that maybe was flooded, maybe wasn't, but would be in the flood zone, but that would really have an impact on us, wouldn't it? Like from a tax standpoint, or it
I
could,
think so.
yeah. Because Andover's not, we have a pretty
Yeah.
specific tax base here. It's about what, a third, maybe a half people who don't live here full time, and then about a half people who are the plumbers and the builders and the electricians and the carpenters and the people that are making a living, every day. So in other words, anything that would go through this program would then be our land. We'd have to take care of it. It's along Route 11. It's maybe along the river, but it would also leave our tax base.
And we'd never be able to do anything with it. We'd never be able to do anything with it. That's the issue. Never be able to do anything with it and possibly be liable for it. It'd be one thing if we could say, hey, there's gravel there. We're going to put in a gravel pit, but we can't do that. We can't do anything with it. Nothing. Except, gravel pit.
The only thing that's sometimes.
Man in the back, you have a gravel pit? We could use one of those.
Well, we can't.
Used to be towns.
I know, right. All right, so I just wanted,
Anyway.
I wanted to make sure I was understanding that correctly, and that's why I asked you.
Steve, is this a reimbursement grant, which is kind of what we're used to, wherein a bill comes here,
Yes,
the town pays for it out of our bank account, and then I have to submit paperwork to get the money back?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
That's a lot.
Or depending on how the contracts are structured, if there's, enough time so that you get an invoice, our program gets invoiced for the reimbursement for that. We get reimbursed prior to actually having to pay the bill.
How
So
often
what
does that
we-
happen, and can that be written into the contract? So that we're a small town.
Yeah.
These are all very
Okay.
legitimate issues for a small town,
If we were to sign off on this and then the garage went rolling down the river before it was taken
That was
down,
another one of my
that would be
questions.
pretty scary to me. I mean, the
Whose
whole thing looked
responsibility
really
is that?
scary anyway, but like, is there a timeline? Like, do they do it within a week of
Say we
us
sign-
buying it, or?
We sign off on it right now, which I'm not prepared to do that, so I'm not gonna be your upset. We sign off on it right now, and all of a sudden, boom, the town owns it, and this hurricane, whatever, comes in and takes out that garage. Who's responsible for pulling that garage out of the river?
Probably the owner of the garage.
Probably
I would
the
assume,
town.
that's why I wouldn't want to own it.
Well, I think that's
So
an
those are
interesting
all-
hypothetical.
But it's
Yeah,
not, because
yeah.
it's there, and
Yeah.
my issue is that it started in 2011, 2015, 2017. That's a lot of time to do a little bit. And I understand why isn't the state done anything, because the state should. I'm all about the state getting into these rivers. If somebody brings me a bill and says, hey, let's get the state into these rivers and pull the rivers and do something about this flooding, I'm all for it. Because, I mean, it's destroying the lands around the rivers, so.
So then, go ahead.
So I have, just so I can recap, so I have 3 questions that I'm chasing down. One is the language question. The second is there a liability on the town in any way,
Anyway, yeah.
ownership, if the bridge in Route 11 is threatened? And then the third was, what if in that period of time between the town owning the property and the demolition taking place, if the garage fell into the river? What would
Or
be
anything like
Yeah, or
that.
what is the timeline? Like, how fast will they do it?
Who's
Well,
responsible for pulling it out of the river?
the challenge, like everybody statewide, is the challenge is finding the labor, the excavators, the demolition crews to do the work. I can't tell you right now how any kind of specific time frame, because everything is so short, shorthanded on pretty much everything. Attorneys, appraisers, everything done like
But
that.
if the town weren't responsible for it, then it wouldn't, I mean,
No,
I would feel awful if we owned it and it fell in
Yeah.
and then we're polluting the water.
so
But if the town weren't responsible for taking it out, then it wouldn't matter.
so let me find out about that.
And then the
Because
other
maybe
thing
there's
was,
a quick, this is a dire situation, which it is. Is there a shortcut to some? I don't know if there is or not, but it's certainly I think an appropriate and legitimate question.
and how does it get paid out? The reimbursement?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Steve, in regards to the demolition, the town would select a local company to do that.
But that's the
right?
problem, is that we may not be able to find somebody for 3 years. What if, like you say, the garage falls into the river in that time frame? Then where are we and what are we liable for?
Because Jeanette could get on the phone and
Right,
start calling
because
people.
somebody says, hey, we don't have time to do that. Or it costs X amount of money to get us out here to do it, and you Andover need to come up with that funding prior to the grant throwing any money towards us. So these are all the questions that I think are really important for us as the select board to ask prior to saying, hey, yeah, we'll do. And I get it. I get where you're coming from. Trust me. I mean, I really do. But I'm not willing to sign for the taxpayers until I know these questions are answered.
Well, we all want to be good partners in this process. And like we discussed last time, we started this journey a while ago, and it started here looking for help. And where do we go? And we got referred to Chester, we got referred to the state, we went to all the different agencies, V-Trans, the engineers, etc. The town wasn't there to help me. They just basically, we've been taxpayers here for 18
But
years.
it's not, but you
But
see,
I
that it's
understand.
not, I mean, it sounds like you're blaming the town for not stepping in the
I'm not
beginning,
blaming
but
the town.
it's not the town's responsibility, and I'm
Okay.
sorry to be so, that sounds so mean, and I'm sorry about that, but it isn't the town's responsibility right now.
Well, I'm just trying to paint a
So-
picture of the
Right.
background, because now we've gone a full circle, and now we're discussing we're raising more questions, and I'm glad, Steve is here to answer all the questions, because we want them all to be answered. And we need to figure out the roadmap going forward
Mhm.
of how we're gonna do this, okay? And we want to continue to be a good partner in the process, but, my only options are that I've exhausted going to all the other agencies, and I get pointed to this agency, and they're willing to help, and it's a common practice in the state. And, we want to satisfy all these conditions, but I want to make sure that we're in sync, because, a lot of these things at the beginning of the process, that information was readily available to you. This whole packet of.
It wasn't though, because I'm asking you questions that he can't answer right now.
No, I'm talking about
So-
the money portion. If you ask, how much are we getting, or how much is it? That was all in the packet that was processed by Jeanette, and I'm sure Chris had
And I
access
did
to
say
it.
that after he had said that the final number, and I'm not gonna tit for tat, go back and forth like this.
Right.
But he had said that the final number hadn't been established. So that is why I asked him what the final number was. So I understand what you're saying to us, but again, I need to know if I'm gonna sign my name on something for the taxpayers, what I'm signing. And I don't think it's clear enough for me to do that.
No, I get it, and I
And I'm
just want.
sorry that that's what I'm
No,
saying.
that's fine, and I get it, but I would like to, have a plan and roadmap going forward and how we communicate, because I don't know the protocol here, but, everybody wasn't getting the information to include me of what was going on. So as we raise these questions, I was in touch with Chris, and, the only problem was the language. All right, but we have other things going on. But moving forward now, how do we communicate? How do I
Well,
communicate?
so let me, maybe this will help. We can't talk about this outside of these meetings.
Okay.
We can't have private meetings in regards to this.
Right.
We have to have public hearings. So in our public hearing, and I'm sorry, I'm coming back with all these different questions, but this is the time that I get to ask them. I can't call him and get 3 of my people together and
We're not allowed to do that.
That's illegal. That's a private meeting that I am not allowed to have. Believe me, this is not a fun meeting right now. It truly is not. For me, it's not a fun meeting because I'm having to ask questions that I know are difficult ones, and I know what you would like, and I understand it. And I don't blame you one bit. But ultimately, I have to ask these questions, but I can't ask them other than here at this open meeting.
Who do I ask the questions to, and what is the protocol for me? Do I email Chris? Do I email Jeanette? Do I talk to both of them? What is it? What is the
I
chain
believe
of?
that he's going to get back with.
My understanding is select board asks me specific questions.
Right.
I have those questions. I will respond back to the select board.
Yep.
with those.
Right.
I think, our protocol is we deal directly with the select board as recipient. It's up to the select board to decide how they want to disseminate that information.
Right. We have to do it in open meetings.
Yeah.
Because everyone has a say. And again, why I asked the people in the back here what their thoughts were.
So I'm guessing what I will provide is either one or more letters, emails, whatever the best method is to formally convey the answers to those questions.
And then we could maybe put it on the
Perfect.
agenda.
Could I ask Jeanette a question? So something in the back of my memory is that if the town is like we're buying some property or selling some property, we could have an executive session about that, or is that not true? Is this a topic that one could
I think
hold?
any kind of attorney-client privilege and personnel issues or reasons for executive sessions. I don't know about the other details. I have to check.
Okay.
Well, I still want to know how do I navigate? How do I get the answers to my question? Do I call Chris?
Whether or not we're going to sign it, is that?
No, where we are in the process.
Right, is it gonna be on the next agenda? I know
Well,
you can't say.
when he gets back to us, then we'll be able to put it on the agenda. Without his answers, we can't put it on. I mean, we can, and we can sit and talk about it all over again and talk about the same thing. But again, we'll come back to the same questions. So we need his questions to have the agenda, have it solidified in the agenda.
So what you're saying is that a week from now, if I want to know the status of this, I can't call Chris or email
No, you
Chris.
can one-on-one. You can email Jeanette or Chris. They can share. We can. I think
But
they
can I
can.
send the email out to everybody and then they can respond to me? Like
whether or not it's going on the agenda, yes.
No, not the agenda. Like, where are we? Did you hear back from Steve?
Or did we hear back?
What was the response? I want to. Plus all
Steve.
What's that?
If Steve sends an email to Jeanette, carbon copies you and me, and everybody will know what's going on.
So Steve can do that?
I believe that's okay.
Well, I need to check. There is a question about maintaining the communication sanctity, if I call it that.
Yeah.
And the questions came from the select board to me.
Yep.
I said, I will respond. I think I need to respond directly to the select board. And then the select board takes that information, discusses it at an open meeting, and responds either through the minutes or direct
Right.
discussion, I think it's up to you. I don't think I should be in the position of being expected to communicate select board
Right.
information to the public.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
we're
no.
right.
I agree with that because I don't think,
It's
again,
just, it's too many
the open-
opportunities.
And it's
for
the open meeting law.
What you're asking is, can you just have conversations with us back and forth about this? And the short answer is, that's not really how it works. Am I right about that?
Well, one-on-one.
One-on-one, you
You could
could.
call any of us, you could email any of us, but.
But until we're all sitting,
Yeah.
we have to
We-
make a
but we
decision.
can't discuss it amongst
Give his
ourselves.
information
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
everyone.
Absolutely.
So,
But we
So-
can certainly leave it on the agenda,
right.
all the agendas,
Right.
not take it off.
Okay.
And then, so at the next meeting, it's on the agenda and it will come up under old business. And then someone will say, Chris, did you get an update from Steve Libby? What did he have to say? And if he
And
doesn't.
then how does
then they
everybody feel about
table
what he had to say? The thing
If
is,
he was able to get answers, and sometimes those take longer than that, but.
as a select board, we cannot like meet at a diner somewhere and sit the five of us and
Right.
just discuss this and make a decision. We're not allowed to do that. I kind of wish we were, but it's illegal. It'd be great if we were. If we could just
No,
get together
I
at a diner once a week and just decide stuff, it would be great, but it's not, that's not how we can do it at all. So that's why, it's frustrating for you, I'm sure. But those questions, if you could answer those in an email format to Chris and or Jeanette, that'd be great, because
Then
then
we'll just keep it on the agenda.
disseminate it out to us.
The next
and then we can
agenda
all-
will be under old business, and if we have received any information, then we'll discuss it. Because even discussing his information, we have to do it.
And it's really
in a
good to be able to ask him these questions, because there's a couple of big questions there about, and here's the thing, if we end up doing something that puts Andover taxpayers on the hook for something, I mean, we have a budget that is like other small towns in Vermont. It's really difficult to manage. And we're trying to do the best that we can. And this is where Robin is saying, boy, if we suddenly found ourselves after another flood, oh, that is going to be $300,000 and you've got to do it. Like, how are we going to explain that? Why did we do that to people? That's the concern.
I'll just say, from my perspective of doing this all around the state in small towns, these are legitimate questions that other towns may have. So if I can come up with good answers for you guys, then that's replicable to other
Yeah.
municipal conversations we have. So I think always,
I'm surprised other towns aren't asking these questions, honestly.
well, the tax-based question comes up all the time. Yes. It just,
Right, when you start taking places out, you're talking about dropping the tax base
Yeah.
for people, and that just is.
It's interesting to me that the buyout program is a relationship between the state and the town, not between the state and an individual
Right.
property owner. And so,
But
I
the
mean,
town has to take
one
it
must
over.
wonder, one must assume that there's a reason for that.
it's very much fundamental to the legislation that creates these grant programs, is that the grantee, the entity receiving the monies, is a municipality or some governmental entity. Sometimes nonprofits can be recipients, but almost never can money go directly to a private individual for these type of flood mitigation programs. Federal money is the same way. The federal government won't directly grant money to private entities for these type of things. It has to go through
It would be
municipal
too
or
easily
state government.
manipulated.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't tell you why that is, but
that would be my guess.
what's that?
It would be too easily manipulated.
One can only imagine how it could be manipulated.
Right.
When we saw what happened to that PPP money during COVID, how the egregious
Oh,
manipulation of that, so it's.
I have two questions regarding communication. I just want to confirm. So prior to the next meeting, if I have a question, if Chris has received a response from Steve, it's appropriate for me to email Chris and Jeanette and ask that question and they can respond to me, right?
Well, let's ask Jeanette that. Is it, or do we do it under old business or new business?
Anybody can email me anytime and ask questions. I don't always have the answers.
Okay. All right. So I just want to make sure
So
that's
you're not
appropriate.
just hanging in
Because
there.
I want to stay close to this and I want us to stay in touch and work this.
Email, get back to me. Steve answered the questions. I mean, I disseminate what he said.
Right.
Right. And the other question is the Zoom right there, can we test fire that? That's my sister-in-law, Chris Colcott. Can we, how does this work? Can she hear us right now? Can she just say hi? So if we aren't here, that we know this thing
She
works?
can't hear you?
I don't know, we don't, but that's, well, we can ask her later, but it's just,
Can we ask her right now? She wants to talk. If I want to talk, I mean, is the person?
I can hear you.
Oh, I love
I
that.
can hear you.
Thank you, Chris.
So just to put this to bed for right now, because we spent way over our time frame that we try to allow for, understandably so. Are you clear on what the communications? You're clear on what you need to gather for us. It'll go to Chris and Jeanette, and you may not know what the answers are. You probably won't know what the answers are at that point, but you will know if it's coming up on the agenda, but we will keep it on the agenda.
And the Zoom on the agenda as well, every week, every 2 weeks. Right?
You have to request it.
Well, can we just have it on autopilot until this is done? Because we want it every meeting.
Sure.
So we don't have to remember to ask.
Okay.
Because if for some reason we can't make it, this is a little journey for us.
Right.
We want to be able to get connected and stay connected and help each other out, and all of us work together for a common good. That's what it's all about, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you keeping us on the agenda and working together with this.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
down.
thank you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, yeah, sure, and it's a difficult process, it's a difficult time for everybody, this whole flooding stuff is just throwing a wrench in everybody's lives, including yours, and you realize that, so as much as it sounds blasé, we do really want to help, honestly, so. What's your
Appreciate
questions?
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
One last question.
Look,
Steve can answer that. Is there a grant that can fix the bank? And that way there, you can do it around and sell the property and get what its market value is?
Are you asking us?
No, yeah,
Oh,
is there a grant that you
Steve.
can fix the
Oh,
bank with?
Question, Steve.
It's been very difficult lately to find grant money to do bank stabilization unless there is public infrastructure involved.
That
And
is
if that-
public.
Yeah, so it's public, so this would be a question for V-Trans because it's their public infrastructure too. And I think that's gonna be part of my question is,
But a grant for them. Have you asked that question to V-Trans?
We did start that off at one.
we were with
time.
them. V-Trans is only concerned about, wing wall end.
Yeah.
You would talk to them, Chris, right?
Yeah, this is not in the right way. They don't want to deal with it.
unless they acquire more right away.
Right.
And so,
So maybe they want more right away.
well,
Go to
who
them.
knows? So I think
I mean, I don't mean to put
that's-
it around, but,
there's a whole
right, maybe that's.
very complicated process that V-Trans goes through to decide where they're gonna make highway investments. And I have no idea how that works.
Yeah.
But I do know, this is a legitimate question, if you're a municipal landowner next to state highway right of way, is there any responsibility on the part of the municipal owner to
Maintain that bank.
Maintain it, yeah.
So that's the question.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
We'll move on to highways.
You're up, Charlie.
Welcome, Charlie. Come on, forward. There you go. Come forward, Charlie. It is hot in here.
Yeah.
All right. So you want these, Chris, or do you want us to? Actually, I guess there's one for each of us, maybe? No, which are they're different. Oh, they are
No
different.
different.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hand those to you. Come
What
forward,
was it,
Charlie.
wind stand?
Yeah.
I was, God,
I mean-
side conversation, I'm all set.
He's like, no, I'm not coming any further
No,
forward.
I'm good. So, I guess at the end of the day today, the way it stood was probably Hunter sand. Is probably the best sand for the price and the closeness to us. It's a little undersized. I talked to Chris about it this morning, so we asked them if they could add a little bit of 3/4 stone to it to give us a little bit of size. And by doing that, they raised the price to $29 million. So that sugars off to $58,000. We have a $45,000 budget. Where we were going to be over budget before, but now this pushes us a little deeper.
Did you talk to Shaves?
Yeah, he didn't feel confident he was going to be able to do anything for us.
Okay. Because I was talking to Nate, he was saying they were going to do winter sand.
Down here, he wants to make some.
Yeah. Behind the house.
David didn't think he could get any done. He didn't want to hold up the whole process.
So with the extra money that Hunter would want to make it the way we want it, are they still a better deal than some of the other
Yeah.
offers?
For the quality of the sand.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
And then would he have more if we needed more?
I believe he wrote, I was going to check today and I didn't, you
Yes.
remember
On that
Jeanette, he
paperwork.
wrote that there would be sand available, I
They've got the
believe.
paperwork.
Oh, they have it
Did it
here.
say that on there?
Yeah, I'm pretty
Right
sure
here, yeah.
Yeah, they've got.
that he said there'd be more sand available.
Yeah.
Additional sand available if needed. So, yes.
All right, well,
Would he hold that pricing?
So
Yeah,
you would-
they hold it for the
They'll
season.
hold it
So,
for the
so you're recommending that we go with Hunter?
yeah.
Well,
I know it's an
that's fine with me
expense.
then.
but-
I move that we go with Hunter.
I second it.
Those in favor?
Okay.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome. I mean, while we're still talking about the sand, and like Scott said, if David does make sand down here, at all, I don't know what we can do. Yes, I don't know what we can do as a board to jump on it.
Right.
I've already put the bug in his ear. I said we would be interested. I said, let us know how much you think you're gonna make. I mean, it's right here. We could
Right.
haul it all in a few days.
Right.
We've done it in the past, and I can't imagine it's gonna be this dollar amount.
So would we,
I don't know how we could do it, but I just think we need to be thinking about it now, because sand is getting tough to get, as you guys know. And the cost is just going up. Once it goes to all ledge, which it's going to before too long, you're gonna be this, even for us to pick it up, you're gonna be the $25 range, I think, probably next season.
so can you keep us in the loop?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I asked him to let me know when they come down here. Like Scott said, it's a sure thing they're gonna crush down here. They're gonna take out the old roadway. And there's quite a bit of material there. I don't know how much is gonna go to winter sand. But
Don't we customarily buy more sand midwinter?
No,
No.
we haven't because we put up more. We've changed the way we put the pile up.
Okay.
So we have a larger pile. So the last few years in, we've had mild winters.
Mhm.
So we haven't used as much. That's why we're only asking for 2,000 yards this year instead of 3.
And I maybe I just not necessarily keeping track of everything, but this is gonna be something we're gonna pick up ourselves?
No.
Or they're gonna
No,
truck it?
no,
They're gonna truck it,
Because
okay.
their pickup price and their
Okay.
trucking price was the same dollar amount, so we would be going backwards if we truck.
Yeah,
You got
okay,
man hours
okay.
and fuel.
Well,
and
I know we
repair.
talked about both and I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know
they
which.
truck it from Clarendon,
Oh, okay.
and if they truck it to London area, they might as well truck it up.
Okay, oh, yeah, okay,
So-
that
so
conversation.
that's- yeah, that's
I got
what
it,
we're-
sorry.
No, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. you're
Yeah.
welcome.
And, go ahead, Chris.
This is the road commissioner's report. And I'll let Charlie basically do that. Road commissioner,
No, what?
road commissioner's report.
What did we have? I met with Hank today. Last meeting, he brought up concern about the Middletown Cemetery, changing that entrance. I don't know when we can get to it, but we went up, took a look at it. We will have to purchase a culvert. We have culverts, but I don't think it needs to be a heavy duty culvert in there like we put under the roads. So maybe like a Bivens or a Valley's purchase. I'll have to look up the cost and then try to figure out a schedule for us to do it, but it's something we can do for sure.
Okay.
And that is not this, I was mistaken. I thought it was the cemetery down by Rowell's End. It is not.
No, it's the
It's the
one
one
on the
up
west end.
on the west Andover Road, on the left.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the middle,
okay.
they call it the Middletown Cemetery.
Okay.
The other thing under, it's kind of under buildings and not roads, but we had another offer for generator service.
Oh, right.
And besides, HB Solutions wanted $400 a generator. And they didn't want it, they weren't interested in doing this one because they didn't install it.
Right, they need more.
This software ends up being about $300 a piece. And he wants to add oil heaters to the 2 generators, the last 2 that were put in.
Oh,
Apparently the one here is long overdue for service, which they've never followed up with me, and it's nothing that's on my radar.
oh, yeah.
How much are oil heaters?
For you as well.
Who was it?
Powers.
Oil heater
Powers,
is $175.
So realistically,
One
that's
oil
Chris,
heater.
that's maintenance plus some additional things he's recommending, so it's a total of $1,400 for all 3 generators and the one-time oil heater thing, right?
Yeah,
Right, and this would be $1,200 if they would even do this one,
Right.
but you won't.
Now, is this gonna be an annual expense? Is that what they're saying? 'Cause this is like a
That seems
yearly
reasonable.
maintenance program?
Yeah, $900 a year.
reasonable this year.
900 a year.
So actually it'd be 900. a
Can
year
we
usually.
use FEMA funds for any of this, or not FEMA, or ARPA funds for any of this, because it's heating and,
Maybe for this one time. I
right,
mean, we're certainly in the process of spending that money.
are we? Yeah.
Probably could.
Is there, do you know, Chris, is there a breakdown of what the maintenance program is? I mean, if it's changing air filters and changing the oil, we're certainly capable of doing that. If it's
Yeah,
adjusting valves and different things that need to happen,
It's
we
just-
probably want to let them do it
It's just oil changes and spark plugs.
for 300 a generator a year.
Can you do that?
Very easily for that amount. $300 a generator?
Just comes with oil coolers.
It'll do that.
Yeah.
Put the coolers in and then you
I mean, we have plenty to do, but that, I mean, you change the oil in the dump trucks and we change the oil in the equipment. I mean, certainly changing the oil and the spark plug in the generator is pretty simple.
Yeah.
And not that costly.
So can we reach out to them about putting the, because you wouldn't put the oil.
I think something like that you'd want them to do.
Can we reach out and see if they would just do that?
Is there a warranty on those?
There
Because
is
if there is,
insurance.
I don't know if you can touch that.
Yeah, that's-
Oh, that's great.
That's a good question.
Yeah, good point.
That's a really good point, that it might need to be. I guess we need to look into that. Whether there's a warranty on those. That's a really good point, thank you.
Yeah, right, because if there's a warranty, they might say, oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
be somebody that's
But
qualified.
this one's 3 years old, I bet there's no warranty.
There's no warranty on that
We
one.
can do this one.
Can we table that? For,
Spend money this year and let them do it, then we pick up.
After that,
all
yeah.
year.
And it needs oil heaters in it anyways. You let them do it this year.
Okay,
I agree with that.
but keep it in our wheelhouse.
Right,
Yeah.
so I move that we accept that for this year,
Then,
that bid for this year. And then we'll keep it in our wheelhouse for next year. Anybody want to second that? Sure.
All those in favor?
I'm like, leave me hanging here, people. I don't know what else I can do. Scott? The school board, the head of the school board just seconded that for me. Crossing meetings. Doesn't matter. Board commissioner, could you second that for me? Leave me hanging. Jeez.
There was, I wanted to bring up the
Yeah.
roadside mowing, unless you got something you want to touch on first.
We gotta talk about paving.
Oh, go ahead, talk
No.
about paving, and I'll hit on paving too, because I got some information on that today.
Okay, well, let's have the information.
What's that?
Let's have your information then.
I called Mark Pickering to find out where we are as far as the paving program
Yeah,
grant. Things are 2 to 3 years out, but because we're immediately after a flood and a lot of people had to do paving then, he's saying apply. Just apply now, worst case, they say no. But he's figuring that some towns aren't gonna want to pave, like what happened the last time we got the paving grant. It was a town rejected it, so we got their 175,000 essentially. So he thinks apply and see where it goes, but if we're not gonna apply, then we're 2 to 3 years out, so it's not gonna be beneficial for next year's paving, if that's what we want to do.
do we need to make a motion to apply for that, or,
okay,
pardon me?
go ahead.
I make a motion that we apply for the paving grant.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye. Didn't we hang?
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I was thinking that,
Yeah.
like, it's another thing to add to.
Where are we at with balance on that account,
Which one?
paving and highways?
The highway fund?
Yeah.
We are still at $225.
Not
Our FEMA money back.
enough money to pay yet.
I know.
No. We having it, we'll get money back then.
It's a great question. I mean, Hector's pushed stuff through and it's all just hanging. We've gotten half, well, a little more than half of what I expect. So, which is our 75% of the total. The state doesn't kick in their 12.5%, I don't think, until the very end. So we'll be hanging for that a little longer.
Is there any chance we'll get 100%?
Not that I'm hearing.
No.
You are doing a Herculean job. Yeah, just so you know, we all know that you're doing a Herculean job.
I get so excited every time 10 more dollars hit the bank.
Right? You got to though. What do you
We're
got
working
to?
really hard to get the tax bills out so we can start collecting money. Shore us up a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's why it's scary to get involved in more programs,
More money that we have to.
more programs.
Yes.
All right, where are we at, Chris?
Right. So on paving.
Oh,
We don't know how we have money coming in. So we're gonna have to table that until we find out when we get the grant. And you wanna get going on culverts if you're gonna do it, but
Yeah, because when I figured like last week's prices on culverts just for those projects that we need to do, just for the culverts alone, were almost 13,000. They're all 24-inch culverts and they're long. Two of them are 80 feet.
Mm.
And a fair amount of work to install them. Definitely nothing we can do.
it'll be another 13 piece to put them in.
Unless we could somehow break them up between, even one this year. Just so there's less to do. I don't know. Certainly could table that. It doesn't have to be a decision made right off.
Fine excavator.
Yeah. So this is Nortrax told me back.
rabble rouser.
So Nortrax told Charlie you need to buy one and just sell it when you're done with it.
Yeah,
Instead of renting
when we rent before.
So paving and what was the other thing you wanted to discuss?
The other thing was I called Jason
Oh, yeah.
this morning about, he's the one that used to do roadside mowing in town before we bought the tractor. And I think he did it 2 passes, so 10 feet basically off the road edge for somewhere around $10,000. So before we bought the mower, we considered having to make a 3rd pass to get a little bit further back off, and it was about 15. So I called him this morning to see if he would come or could come through and take all these overhanging limbs that we have on the road, because we just don't have the time to cut every road back. We've done a lot of projects and it's usually cooler weather when we do it. I mean, you have helmet and chaps and you sweat pretty bad, so we don't do it in this weather, obviously. And he was about, if he was to do one aerial pass, which is basically like 5 feet up, is $5,850. If we wanted him to do 2, then obviously double that's like 11,700. If you wanted to do 3, which that's what I would push for, you're $17,000. And unfortunately, we could table it until next year if it's something that can't work, but he's in Weston starting tomorrow. He thinks they'll be done on Thursday, so he would need to know by Thursday, and then he would just come here to start moving. So it doesn't give us very much time. I've been thinking about it for a while, but because of all this budget stuff, I kind of put it on the back burner, and just on a whim, I called him today, and most people don't pick up or return your calls, and he picked up immediately, and we had a pretty in-depth conversation of what he could do, and he laid the cost right out for me, so.
That's a lot of money.
It is.
I would really like to hear Richard weigh in on this as well.
It was the next time,
Yeah, I think we need to table it.
the next year.
See that if it gets tabled, unfortunately, it'll have to be next year, but it's
Next year.
something that I think we should consider.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be this year, but within probably next year.
yeah.
Well, then we could budget for it.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
that's the thing, when you can plan for it, it makes it a little bit easier as
Yeah.
well. For sure.
And get bids.
Wow,
Maybe
he's
there's other people?
pretty much the guy.
Is he the guy
Yeah,
that
and he does all the state roads, so usually when he comes to a town, he just swings in.
goes through all of them?
He used to mow the entire town in like
Mhm.
2.5 days. Where it takes us a month and a half,
Right?
you know?
Good financial orders.
Is he broken or what?
Interferes with the TV.
It makes a wicked sound.
Next time I'll remember when I leave to leave it at 60 for 2 hours till we get here.
I'll give you a piece of paper.
That's all right.
I've been paying, so it doesn't feel that hot to me. Or gathering bills or something. I can't do that in red.
Yeah, that would seem over the top, wouldn't it? A little angry, aggressive. That's like, hey,
It's like, new edition.
Pass the.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I'm sorry I couldn't come. I was gone.
oh,
Communications and that.
Just a thank you from my community notice project. There was a little article in the journal last week or the week before, and she just sent an email and said, hey, make sure you read this and thank you.
And we got the letter from Bianca Niello. Or is it?
Right, but that's on the next agenda for the public hearings,
Okay.
so
That's not-
yes, I wasn't gonna bring it under here.
You've been in here all day in this heat.
It wasn't bad
It wasn't
earlier,
bad
like
earlier, yeah.
100 bodies.
100 bodies in here, right?
It wasn't hot till now. Being hotter over there.
Well, I came up and the door was shut. I'm like, yes, seas on. I opened the door. I'm like,
All right, so I guess we just need to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
Oh, sure, now, right? You leave me hanging on the important thing, but now you're both gonna scream second it. Second it, right?